Today in Math 10C, we're going to look at factoring using the decomposition method. So this is again three-term polynomials, except this time we're not going to have a 1x squared, we're going to have something a little bit larger. So here, let's get started. Again, always remove the greatest common factor first. Notice the 2 terms, 3 terms, and 4 terms are what we're going to be able to factor. If we had 3 terms, we could factor using the sum product method if it was something like x squared plus 7x plus 12. Just to review for a moment, this is where we had to find 2 numbers that multiplied together to give me 12 and added up to positive 7. And that would be x and an x in the first part of the bracket to give us an x squared, and then we'd have a plus 4 and a plus 3 in the second part. And we're done. Now, using the decomposition method to factor, what we're going to do this time is the first thing you're going to do is have to find a number that's going to be the product of the first and last coefficients. So this time we're going to have, in this example, to find 2 numbers that are going to multiply together to give me 3 times 5, which is 15. So I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiply together to give me 15 and still add up to 16. So if we thought about those for a minute, hopefully 2 numbers that multiply together to give me 15 and add up to 16 are going to be 1 and 15. Now, what we did last time was different than what we're going to do now. With these 2 numbers, we're going to decompose the middle term. Instead of writing this middle term as 16x, we're going to break it into 2 parts. And one is going to be 1x and the other one's going to be 15x. So we're going to rewrite this entire thing to be 3x squared plus 1x plus 15x plus 5. Now, from here, what we're going to do is we've got 4 terms. We're going to factor this by grouping, which means we're going to factor the greatest common factor out of the first 2 terms. 3x squared plus 1x. The biggest thing I can divide into both of those terms would be 1x. Now if I divided that, I'd get x times 3x, and 1x divided by x is just 1. Now I'm going to do the same for the last 2 terms. For 15x and 5, I can divide positive 5 out of both of those. So now on the back end of the first one, I can say plus 5 times the quotient, which would be 3x plus 1. Now, to keep going, I now have x times 3x plus 1 plus 5 times 3x plus 1, so I can factor 3x plus 1 out of both of those terms, and that's going to be 3x plus 1 times the part that's left over, which is x plus 5. And that's how you factor using the decomposition method. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move ahead and we're going to go to the section on decomposition. Factoring using the decomposition method. This method also uses the sum product method and a little guess and check to find your factors. The steps are to ask what 2 numbers will multiply together to give you the product of the coefficients of the first and last term, and then add up to the middle term. These numbers will decompose the middle term and turn your trinomial into an expression with 4 terms instead of just 3. And an expression with 4 terms will be factored by grouping. Let's look at our first one. 2x squared plus 7x plus 6. Notice here we're going to find 2 numbers and multiply together to give us 12 and add up to 7. Well, hopefully you can see that that's going to be 4 and 3. So the 2x squared plus 4x plus 3x plus 6 is what it's going to factor into. Now I can take the GCF out of the first 2 terms, and that would be a 2x. So I'd write that as 2x times, and when I divide, I'm going to be left with 1x plus 2. Next, the last 2 terms, I can factor a 3 out of both of those, a positive 3. So I can say that that's going to be plus 3 times, I can divide, and I'm going to get x plus 2. Now when I look at this, I can take an x plus 2 out of both of those terms, So I can factor this to be equal to x plus 2 times what's left over, which is 2x plus 3. And that's it. That's all there is to it. And the second one, you got to multiply. 6 times 4 is 24. Two numbers that multiply together to give me 24 and add up to 11. That would be, oh, we're checking the first one, sorry, using foiling method to make sure that we got our same original question back. And if you notice, 2x squared plus 7x plus 6 is the original on the first one. I forgot I did that. So here again, 6 times 4 is 24, and add up to 11. Hopefully you can see that's going to be 8 and 3. That means the middle term can factor into 8x plus 3x, or it can factor into 3x plus 8x. It doesn't matter. In the end, you're going to get two factors that are going to be the same. Now, if we factor this, we're going to get 6x squared plus 8x plus 3x plus 4. Now I can factor 2x out of the first two to get 2x times 3x plus 4. But out of the last two terms, you can look and see there's nothing I can factor out, but you can always factor out a 1. So we're going to factor a 1 out of that, so it's going to be plus 1 times 3x plus 4. Now you'll notice that the 3x plus 4 is the same in both again, so you're going to express that as 3x plus 4 times what's left over, the 2x plus 1. In the next one, 5x squared plus 7x plus 12, plus 2. This time I'm going to do it both ways. I'm going to show you, doesn't matter how you decompose the middle term in the order, you're going to still get two factors that are going to be the same. So I'm going to do it twice. In the first case, two numbers that multiply together to give me 10 and add up to 7 are going to be 5 and 2. So there I have 5x squared plus 5x plus 2x plus 2. Now I can factor a 5 and an x out of the first two to give me 5x times x plus 1. And I can factor a 2 out of the second group to get 2 times x plus 1. And a final answer of x plus 1 times 5x plus 2. Now if I did it again, except I rewrote the middle terms the other way to get 5x squared plus 2x plus 5x plus 2, I can now factor an x out of the first two to get x times 5x plus 1 and a plus 2, that should be a 2, and then I can factor a 1 to get 5x plus 1, or should be 5x plus 2. I really messed that up. I'll have to fix that. That's 5x plus 1. And let's go to the last one. 12x squared plus x minus 6. Now, we need two numbers that are going to multiply together to give me negative 72 and add up to positive 1. Well, remember, these one's got to be positive, one's got to be negative, and they're going to be one number apart, and the positive's going to be one bigger than the negative. Enough clues for you? It should be 9 times negative 8. So now I'll decompose this into 9x minus 8x. So this will be 12x squared plus 9x minus 8x minus 6. And dividing both of these by 3x, I'm going to get 3x times 4x plus 3. The second one, I'm going to divide that each by 2. And I'm going to get negative 2, sorry, so that'll be minus 2 times positive 4x plus 3, that those match up. Make sure you factor out the negative. So your final answer will be 4x plus 3 times 3x minus 2. There you go. Now, something to always remember, and that is that always check to see if you can factor out a GCF first. In the ones that we did today, we didn't have those, but you are going to run into those in your homework. Your assignment for day 1, I want you to do page 177, 8, 10, 12, 15, and 18. And on day 2, I want you to do worksheet 3.8 that I gave you last Friday.